Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to the 100th episode of In the Prog Seats. Can you believe we made 100 episodes? Hard to believe. And not only is it our 100th episode of this show, this is also the sequel to the most watched episode of In the Prog Seat. This is Prog Albums We Can't Stand, Part 2. Will it live up to Part 1? Doubtful, but we're going to give it our best shot. So let me introduce everybody on the panel today. We've got all the way from Scotland, Stephen Reid's here. Miami, Little Louis Van Zant. George Lamie. Chad Hutchinson is our center square tonight. Sorry about last night, Chad. For those of you who wonder what the hell we're talking about, Super Bowl talk. So, yeah.
More detail than I acquire.
That's right. That's right. Chuck Alvarez, Eric Porter, and Ken Get Me Out of Jail, Golden, Professor of Prog. Greetings, gentlemen. Good evening.
Good evening.
What is up?
We've got 5 albums we can't stand. This was apparently very tough for everybody because I think we kind of almost shot our load in the first episode, but we found 5 more.
So I found 6.
I have more than 5 as well, but I got some honorable mentions. So we're gonna go in the same order that I just announced to everybody. So Stephen, you're gonna kick us off with your first 2 selections of the day.
Oh, okay then. Yeah, so I'm gonna go for some low-hanging fruit, I would guess. I'm just gonna put it out there and say that I actually do quite like Pink Floyd. Okay, because I know that I picked on them in the first show. I went early in the first show, went to debut album. But you can't go and not mention this. I mean, you can't not mention The Endless River. I mean, it's drivel, is what it is. I know it was well-intentioned. I know it's meant as a tribute to Rick Wright, and I get all that. And I'm really sorry, Lewis. I like Gilmour-era Pink Floyd. But that's because at least he could be bothered to write some songs. Do you know? I know that this is outtakes and leftovers and all that kind of stuff. Ultimately, it's just a jumble of nothing. It's just nonsense. It's not a good listen. It's not enjoyable. For this to be, you would think, the final thing that will ever come from this band, what was the point in doing that? This really, realistically, is a bonus disc. Released as a whole album is what it is. That it's the sort of thing that they would do a remaster, put out, I don't know, the Division Bell, and they would go, guess what? Lots of stuff you've never heard, and you'd go, well, that's okay. I don't mind that because I've got an album that I've already got. I've got music that I've never heard before. But to say there's new Pink Floyd coming out and you rush out and buy it, and like the debut, I go and buy the fancy box thing, it's just crap. But
nice cover though.
The lyrics are so good on that one song now.
Yeah. By show of hands, who has listened to that since it first came out?
I heard it once.
Yeah, I think I listened to it the first 2 weeks and I never played it again.
Yeah,
one time.
I have gone back to it once or twice, but more to try and make the effort than because I wanted to. You know what made me think I must have missed something. It got quite a positive response when it first came out. But
but it's because it's Pink Floyd.
Right. Yeah.
But those are rejects from a shit album. Let's not forget that. It wasn't good enough to be on that shit album. So imagine the joy that came to my headphones when I played that thing.
That's why you like the final cut.
No, the final cut's an actual record.
From the wall.
No, that's not even true. The point is that this fucking record, right, is if an enema had a voice, it would sound like that. Okay? That's what that record is. I'm sorry to say. I know everybody thinks that David Gilmour can do no wrong, blah, blah, blah. Fuck off. I am with Steven 100%. That is garbage.
You just gave me a good analogy for one of my picks later. Thank you for
that. Yep.
Oh, dear. Okay, so for my second one, I've gone for another easy target, or I think it's an easy target. Somebody's bound to hate me for it, but there you go. And I could have chosen numerous ones. And really, I went for an album called The Art of Survival purely because I owned a Billy Sherwood album at one point. And that was the one that I owned. And realistically, I mean, he's been involved in so many different things. I've heard Circa. I mean, he's involved in hundreds of albums. And invariably, if he shapes the sound, they all sound pretty boring and pretty garbage. And they're just lumping. And it's just boxes.
Lumping.
Well, it's boxes being ticked.
Yes, yes.
Is what it is. And I really think that he's the chief box ticker. It is just, this is what a prog album should sound like. There's nothing exciting. There's no surprises. You know everything that's going to come. And he delivers it in the most unexciting way. It's safe. It's staid. It's in the middle lane all the time. And I know there's an audience out there that goes, yes, but it's prog rock, and isn't it proggish? And there's nothing new about it. You've heard it all before, and it just keeps on coming. And he's got one idea all the time. Every album sounds the same, and I dislike everything that I've heard from him. I'm actually probably picking out acts that I don't like most with the rest of this. But there you go. So I've gone for The Art of Survival by Billy Sherwood.
You know, people have to buy his stuff because Cleopatra just keeps cranking them out.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's just endless.
Tribute
Endless.
albums too.
There's an Anthony in every group of friends.
It's I don't get it.
I'm sorry, Anthony. Yeah, because I know
I love Anthony, but you know what you know.
Yeah, so that's my first two.
Well, sir, I don't like it.
All right, Lewis.
Okay. My first two picks were going to be precisely, believe it or not, Pink Floyd, The Endless River. Because I think what annoys me the most about it is that it actually does a disservice to the memory of Rick Wright. I would like to remember him with better shit than that. And I can, because he did a lot of good stuff, right? But the idea they put it together, it doesn't work for me. Granted, the Division Bell does have, High Hopes, which is a fantastic song. And it doesn't sound out of place when they played it with the other stuff. So, but man, that record is just so bad. So I know people love it. I know that it's Pink Floyd, and Pink Floyd is like shitting on the Pope. You can't say anything bad about them, but I don't care. That is just terrible, and I dislike that album immensely. And that's the thing, is that albums we can't stand, right? We're not saying they're bad or whatever. We're just saying I don't fucking like it at all. And I don't have one. I bought it, I heard it, and I knew that if I took it back to Reckless, they would buy it back for full price, and that's exactly what I did. So I don't have anything to show because it's fuck that. The other one that I have to mention, because it really did irritate me. Many years ago, when I lived in Maryland, there's a place called Orion Studios, and a lot of like-minded people gather there and discuss records and things. And I didn't know that much about prog. I was just, discovering all these old records. And some guy who obviously didn't like me recommended I should hear an album called Aphrodite's Child 666. Or six, or the other way around, whatever it is. And here is the thing. If you're sufficiently stoned and otherwise impaired, it still somehow doesn't work, but it's not as bad as when you hear it without these attributes. And in the course of this exchange, I somehow ended up buying a copy. And I have tried to like this record in many different formats, situations in my life. Eventually, I just got rid of it because, to me, it is emblematic of what people who don't know progressive rock imagine progressive rock is. And that's what they hate, right? So I hate that it exists because it gives validation to idiots. And therefore I don't like that record because I just find it amorphous and silly, and it doesn't really know what it is to my ears. It has a little bit of everything, but it's mostly a bunch of nothing. And like I said, it's the cliche of why people hate prog. And if they play that to you, it's like, gotcha, bitch. You're done, right? So I think those are my first two.
Louis, you don't want to hear Irene Pappas have an orgasm?
Oh, not even if I'm giving it to her.
I don't know. That album was originally supposedly that album was 2.5 hours long, and they edited it down.
I wonder who was the merciful soul who made that happen.
I don't know. I like the album. I mean, personally, I like it. To me, I hear more of a psych album than it
is.
Album.
But it has, like I said, to me, it's just the association of it as emblematic of prog that bothers me, because I don't really think of it like that. But a lot of people think of it as prog. If you go into Reddit and you ask, why do you hate prog? That album is mentioned a lot, right? It lives in the consciousness of people as it's an example of why prog sucks, right? This is why I dislike it, because I don't think it really does anybody any favors, and I actually generally don't like it. So,
I don't think that album is a classic that everybody says it is. I mean, I like it to an extent, but there are people like, oh my God, it's a great album. Like,
yeah.
I find it overrated. Not a bad album, but just overrated.
No, it's not bad.
I think there are parts that I think are really good. I like Silva Colores' guitar work on the album, mostly.
Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to hear what King Crimson album George's going to shit on.
Uh-oh.
Speaking of George, you're up.
Okay, my first one is Gong Yu.
I knew it.
This is a recommend from Ferraro when I first got on the show with him.
George, do we talk before these episodes? Just say no.
When I first met Anthony on the show, he found out I loved the first two at Holdsworth, and he said, "Oh, you got to hear you," And I checked it out, and man, is it lame. It starts off with like 7 or 8 minutes of twee vocals, make me feel like I should be wearing a derby and a monocle. Falls into some mediocre groove that sounds like something Passport would have done better on Master Builder. It's okay, but then after that, there's like long periods of spaciness, and the twee vocals come back in. It ends with some like 12-minute trip tune. I don't do shrooms anymore, so it don't work for me. So I'm gonna say this album's a disaster. Gong Yu.
I'm with you, buddy.
Chuck is having a migraine.
He's like sticking me.
You're gonna like me even less. My second one is the Mars Volta, Francis the Mute. In theory, I should like this band. They're totally uncompromising, which I appreciate, but they have a dedication to racket that I just can't abide.
Totally agree.
Are these brick walls, Ken? Because I have a headache like 4 songs into any of their albums, just from the sonic of it all.
It's frantic. It's relentlessly frantic.
Yeah, and none of it's exciting. It's just like constant.
It was the worst concert I ever saw in my life.
I
I don't even have to think about it.
Our friend Matt Johnson raved about the debut, and I started with that one, and I feel the same way about that one.
Matt and I went to see them at the TLA in Philly. I couldn't wait to get out of there. I think I dragged them out before the encores.
Yeah, this one I like even less. It's fatiguing. They're good musicians, except for the singer. I get annoyed with him pretty quickly. He's kind of a screechy dude. And I feel like there's this particular album has long periods where nothing's going on. Then they'll have some atonal shit for no reason. And I just feel like a lot of it is contrived. There's trumpet for no reason. There's Chicano vocals for no particular reason. To me, the whole thing is just a mess. So I'll say Mars Volta, Francis the Mute.
You chased Lewis away.
I think he likes it too.
I know he's a fan. Yeah.
I'll be glad he missed it.
All right, Chad.
All right. Well, I wasn't around for part one, so I'm glad I can contribute to part two. I'm going to start off with a little bit of low-hanging fruit myself, but I do have some here that are going to get you guys riled up, I think. So my low-hanging fruit is Heaven and Earth by Yes. That is just a dreadful album. I got through it once. I couldn't believe it was a Yes album. There's so much slow tempo nonsense. The songs are not they're not compelling whatsoever. And really, John Davison, I know they got this guy because he had a John Anderson-like voice, but he's got no conviction. He sings like he's like singing in front of the church for the first time, and he's 6 years old. He's scared out of his mind. There's no oomph to him whatsoever. And I'd like to see him, be able to pick that up on another Yes album. But who wants to hear another Yes album now? I don't. I'm done. They got plenty of good stuff in the past. This one sucks. Even some of the melodies that are in there are just silly. They feel like the Yes is tramping through the fields of flowers writing their songs, looking for John Anderson behind a tree. So yeah, Heaven and Earth, terrible, awful. Don't need it.
I think the ghost of Chris Squire is in my office because as you were saying that, like CDs just started falling off my shelf.
I saw that. I'm proud to say I've never heard that album.
Me either.
You're not missing anything.
You'll hate it, Ken. You'll hate it.
You'll hate it. Horrible album.
All right. So then my second one for this round is a band I actually liked their first album and was okay with their second album, but then that was plenty, and that'd be Transatlantic, and the album is The Whirlwind. I wish I could get that 78 minutes back. That was just 78 freaking minutes of the same Neil Morse isms and changing it up, the way he changes things up and the way he sings, and cliche type melodies, and you have happy riffs, and I'll just say it. I think the guitar solos are boring, flat out boring. I get nothing out of the guitar solos, and the thing's just predictable. You know where it's going. Oh, they're going to change the part, or they're going to just speed it up. They're going to slow it down. Oh, here comes the heavy part, and it just goes and goes and goes. You can't follow it. At that point, you're half asleep on the table trying to figure out what the hell they're singing about. And then, a predictable slow outro. Wow, that's original. It was exhausting. I got through it just to say I got through it and check that box, but I never need to hear that again. I mean, I've already heard what they do. They did it very well on the first album. They got a little thin on the second one, but a 78-minute track of that shit. Come on, guys. That supergroup should have been able to do better than that. And they didn't evolve. They just kept doing the same thing. And I like all those guys.
Not anymore.
Right, yeah.
I know. No, it's just
Chad's numbers being erased from phones as we
I know. Sorry, Mike, if you're listening. But no, that one does nothing for me. I really liked the first. We had him at the first Near Fest, and it was a fun show, but boy, it just didn't end up evolving. And then we got a 78-minute track, and
they're supposedly done now, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Tell you what, Chad, I like all the rest of them, but that one. I don't like that one.
Yeah.
Uninspired.
Yep. Very much so. There's no need for a 78-minute track.
We just started shipping out their final live album.
So, I think they have more live albums than they have studio albums, right? Or
Just as many, probably.
yeah.
All right. Well,
we lost
Mike
Lewis. Did Lewis
He disappeared. Yeah.
Nothing?
Did he think we were only doing two?
I guess. All right, Chuck.
Oh man. Good evening, gentlemen.
Hey.
I'm glad to be around for the second go around. My first one is an album when you have you have these great musicians. You have the late Michael Brecker, you have Herbie Hancock, you have Pat Metheny, and you have Stanley Clarke. And the album is Wilderness by Tony Williams. I only played this album once, and I listened to it all the way through, and I couldn't believe that this was a Tony Williams album. This album was heartbreaking. It was so boring. I don't even know if I still have it. No, seriously, I don't think I even have. I don't even know if I still have it. I listened to it once, and it was so uninspiring, and I just couldn't believe that was a Tony Williams album with all those great musicians on there, and the album just blew. One of the worst albums I've ever listened to. Not a good album. I can't believe that there are people that actually find this to be a good album, but not Wilderness, Tony Williams. That's my first one. And then my second one is from another bass player, jazz bass player that I love very much. It's Eberhard Weber's The Following Morning. In comparison to everything that he's done beforehand and afterwards, this is basically a classical album, which I have no qualms when it comes to classical music. But this album is basically another snooze fest. It actually makes Fuzak sound like like it's lively and upbeat. I'm expecting something that's a bit more jumpier when it comes to Eberhard Weber, knowing that he is a mellow-minded bass player, but he's had some pretty stunning stuff beforehand. But this album, The Following Morning, no good. Pretty boring, man. So those are my two picks: Wilderness by Tony Williams and Eberhard Weber's The Following Morning. Boring. If you need sleep, listen to these two albums.
that Tony Williams album should have been mind-blowing, right?
Oh, it really should have. But I was so disappointed.
Couple good moments, but for the most part, it's just
sad.
Yeah.
And like I said, try Eberhard Weber's The Following Morning. It's just as disappointing.
He has a great body of work.
Unbelievable.
I don't know that.
But this is probably one of his turkeys, man.
I don't know.
I don't like it.
Yeah, you're not gonna like it.
There you go. All right, Eric.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
I swear to God, George and I do not talk before the show.
Are you sure?
I also had Gong's You. The female caterwauling, the talking, the goofiness. I don't know if it's David Allen or Steve Hillage. I think George mentioned Master Builder. That's the only thing that's kind of a interesting riff. And I'm going after vocalists tonight, obviously, but I don't get it. And I don't even
just
think
tonight, Eric?
Well, just especially tonight. And I the spacey stuff, I'm now diverse to that. I'll listen to space rock, but there's not much interesting here that I hear. And I know this is part of that trilogy that everyone talks about, Flying Teapot or whatever. I don't know. It doesn't do anything for me, and it's, I don't know where it gets elevated to the status it does. And I think, secondly, something I wanted to point out is when I got into prog, and even up till recently, we didn't have a chance to. Now you can go out and listen to anything. So the fact that I still have these, you had to buy it to hear how bad it was.
Shocking.
It is. And I'm glad Lewis is actually gone, because I know he's not going to like that, or he's not going to like what I have to say.
I see what you have.
And I blame you too for this, Chad, because I bought this, I think, when you had them playing Nearfest. Me, it's this is a Sleepy Time Gorilla Museum grand opening and closing. Cacophonous, and I'll go back to George since we're kind of in line. Headache-inducing music, bad male and female vocals. I don't know. I tried with this band. To me, it's awful, and I'm not hammering the musicianship, but it's unlistenable. Yes, Lewis, you got to go back away for a little while.
Oh my God!
Oh yeah!
All right, so let me get this straight.
No, let me go, and then I'll let you go.
Faulty modem, but now I deal with this.
All I'll say is, with me or Lewis, go out and listen to Powerless, and if you tell me you like that singing, I got nothing else to say. That's all I can say. Those are my two.
Oh boy.
You guys are killing me, man.
Eric
killing
was
me,
sitting there thinking,
Smalls.
it's like, please have him not hop back on. So
I was thrilled when he was gone. I'm like, yes,
What was your other pick?
gong. I had the same as George. You.
Oh,
Gong, you.
Oh well.
And actually, if I can
missed-
throw one in, this is a Louise too. You have to be stoned to like this, or
Wow.
shrooms, or whatever.
Yeah. Luis, you also missed one of George's picks, which was Mars Volta.
I know you don't like the Mars Volta.
Francis the Mute.
Just a mute.
Well, George is gonna go with that. That's his style. He has to pick like the best of the bunch, and that he doesn't like and shit on it. I love that about him.
Oh man.
You can't really top in the Court of the Crimson King though.
Yeah, well that will never be topped.
One Hearts.
Bon Hearts. Yeah.
In a Silent Way.
Yeah.
That's a
All
song.
right, Ken. What do you got, Ken?
So I don't have these in any particular order. They're all pretty hateful. So I'm just gonna start. And I don't really have show and tell because I hate these albums. I didn't keep any of them except maybe one.
Same.
My first one, Eddie Jobson made an album called Green. And I think it was called the Green Album because it made everybody nauseous. It's very simplistic synth pop. It really has nothing to do with progressive music. I find it to be very monochromatic and very, very dated sounding. Eddie sings on it. He's not much of a vocalist, but I would say, even though his voice is kind of thin, it fits the music. There's just no body to it. They're live drummers, but they all sound like drum machines. From what I had heard, somebody told me, was that he intentionally didn't want to bring in all these top drummers and stuff. He didn't want he didn't want Terry Bozzio and all these guys. He was going for a certain sound, and I guess he got it. He's got 4 guitarists on there, including Gary Green, and they have absolutely nothing to say.
Mhm.
Eddie, he cooks up some nice synthesizer sounds that are again dated. The violin work is kind of okay, but compositionally, it's just a big nothing. I mean, it was sort of fun to revisit these awful albums after all these years, thinking, oh, maybe there's something there. You're listening with different ears. No, it was probably worse than I remembered.
Yep.
I mean, it's just so dated sounding, and I didn't quite get what he was going for.
Someone's ears are probably ringing right about now. Right?
Sorry, Anthony.
Yeah, I had to get it. I had to get that one out of the way. So I really don't understand the appeal of that record. I mean, I know some people seem to like it. You like it?
No,
I don't like it.
No, I mean
I hate it.
it's a flaming turd, and
Yep.
I don't. Yeah. So, the next one, I'm gonna go. Let's see, which one do I want to go with? Yeah, I'm gonna go. Pain of Salvation B. Now, I love Pain of Salvation. I mean, to the point, I'm the guy that brought Pain of Salvation to the U.S. in the sense that I kind of discovered them. Their first 2 albums were only released in Japan. You couldn't get them. I brought them over here. I imported them. I sold hundreds of copies. They wound up getting signed by Inside Out, and they blossomed. Great band, right? So I'm live a number of times. This album, when it came out, I didn't know what the hell that album was about. It's just this super concept that it's either this concept that like flies over my head, or it's just this overblown, pretentious twaddle. I mean, I'm just not sure what it really is. I mean, like I said, I tried to decipher it when it came out. I couldn't figure it out. And now I revisited it. I had to shut it off. There's some beautiful parts to it. There's this one track called Pluvius Stavis, which it kind of reminded me a little bit of like Philip Glass. But do I need Philip Glass in my prog metal? I don't really think so, I'm hearing little bits of like English folk music. There's some really bad attempts at like a Faith No More type rapping. There's black spirituals. Who needs that? Why do I need Daniel Gildenlow to give me that? I don't know if he was just trying to stretch out, push boundaries, whatever you want to call it. But I think he just overshot the mark. I mean, it's impressive, but for all the wrong reasons. I try to get through the album, think I listen with fresh ears, and it would resonate with me, and I get it. I had to take it off about halfway through. I just couldn't take it anymore. I'm not even sure I'd say I hate it, but it's probably one of the biggest disappointments of the last 25 years in terms of music from a band that I really like. And this album, I just don't get it. I don't understand it.
How would you compare it to Road Salt?
I didn't particularly care for Road Salt, but Road Salt, he was going for a different sound. Road Salt almost like Road Salt, it was almost like he was going in like a retro. They were almost going in like a retro sound.
Yeah.
This was like he was going for the grand concept. And if you ever tried to watch like the concert video, it was this epic theatrical performance.
I have it. Yeah, it's very weird.
It's very weird, right?
There's like a baptism happening, but it's not a baptism.
Yeah,
and
it was fucked up, man. And and the thing is, you listen to like those first few albums, they were fucking great. The Perfect Element. I mean, right, George?
Yeah. First four.
Unbelievable. And then this came out. I'm like, what the fuck is this? I kept trying. And I'm like, I sold a lot of them. And I think everybody who I sold it to said, what the fuck is this?
I'm one of them.
Yeah. I'm telling you. I might still have a copy sitting on the shelf, but I don't know. Somebody can maybe explain it to me, but I doubt it. I'm not even sure Daniel could explain it to me.
Probably not.
Daniel's a very strange guy. I tried to sell mine at C Depot in Maryland, and they wouldn't buy it back. And I tried at Reckless Records in Chicago years later, and they wouldn't take it either. So I still have it
because they know how bad it is.
So I don't know. I feel bad shitting on the band because I think they're great. When they were great, they're amazing, right?
Yeah, and I saw them. I saw them live a number of times.
Me too.
Great band.
But that's
just checked. Apparently, I have it. Who knew?
Yeah, I still have mine too.
Great body of work. It was great. But this thing, man, what is it? I don't know.
Pretentious.
Yeah, I mean, pretentious.
But it's like this master class of fictional history.
Yeah, I mean,
to me, it's what it sounds like.
And these are the guys that did Remedy Lane. I was like, what? I mean, I don't get it. I don't get it.
It's a good pick.
Yeah. So those are my first two.
Okay.
More to come. Stand by.
So I think I'm going to piss off some people on my first two, but that's okay. My first choice, I had to do one here for this band. Magma Mechanic Destructo Commando, or whatever the hell he's played that. From 1973. So I actually went and re-listened to all these albums before we did this today. And I'm again reminded of why I got rid of all my Magma CDs after listening to this pile of crap. First of all, I find this Cobain vocal language chanting completely annoying. And what's really interesting about this band is like I don't mind them musically too much, but it's like every free second of space is taken up by all this, like Eric said it perfectly before, obnoxious caterwauling. It's just male and female. I don't care who it is. It drives me crazy. The vocal lines and the music are nonstop repetitive bullshit. There's some little bits here and there that I don't mind too much. The horns, I think, are nicely done. When you can hear them over all this ridiculous shit that they're screaming all the time, gives it like a little Zappa feel in spots, which again, musically, I don't mind this band. But it's so drowned out by all the vocals. I mean, seriously, folks, if you want to drive your neighbors away real quickly, open up all your windows, play MDK on as loud as you can possibly do it, and you will watch them run screaming down the street. I have no use for this album or this band. So that is my first pick.
Are you appreciative of the musicianship?
Oh yeah, but
I mean, he's a great drummer.
Yeah, he's a great drummer. There's some good players in the band, but I can't get past all that wall.
No, Pete, I know you've tried.
I've
Did you
tried.
ever listen to like the first couple albums?
Yeah, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
those are almost like Chicago, listening to like Chicago
They're kind of
Transit.
like jazz albums until they open their mouths. Yeah, so it's
Well, yeah, but there is that.
yeah, there is that. Unfortunately, I can't get past that. So that's kind of like a theme for my next pick. This I know is going to upset a lot of people, and I love this guy. However, Just Another Band from LA is a pile of shit. I'm sorry. As much as I love Frank Zappa and I love all the musicians in this band, Flo and Eddie should not be anywhere near a Frank Zappa stage or album. And I don't dislike the Turtles. I don't know what it is when they joined up with Frank that these guys have to be doing this all the time. It's absolutely ridiculous. And
So corny.
You know, Billy the Mountain. I've talked to people who are Zappa fans for decades who are like, Billy the Mountain is legendary. It's genius. It's like 25 minutes of stupidity. It's Flo and Eddie just like cackling around, and I don't find it funny.
I don't find it funny.
It's boring. It's absolutely boring. You know, to me, go back to the Turtles, leave Frank Zappa and his music alone. I don't get it. Call Any Vegetable is musically pretty serious on here, but then the high-pitched wailing comes in, they lose me. You know, and then you got Eddie, Are You Kidding? I just want to hear Frank play guitar. He's playing some guitar. They're screaming and yipping and yapping and telling terrible, terrible, terrible. Magdalena, Dog Breath, also awful. Great guitar solo in Dog Breath. But again, ditch these two guys. You might have a decent album here, but with them, it just sounds like a pile of junk. And I love Zappa. But the two albums that he did with these two clowns, I'm just totally not into it all. Again, don't dislike him in the Turtles. I don't want them anywhere near Frank Zappa. So those are my first two.
You didn't like what about the live album?
The live
like
the Fillmore?
Nope. It's got those two idiots on it. I don't like it.
I think that is better than that one. But you're right. Like they subtract more than they add.
Yep.
And those guys know how to sing. So why are they I don't understand why they're doing what they're doing. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And to me, it sounds like a Broadway play that's like out of control by two drunk hobos who are just walking and running around on stage like the entire time. They don't shut up. It's just like stop so I can hear, because there's great players in this band at that time.
The thing is, though, you know that Frank had to approve everything.
Of course. So what was going on with him at the time? I don't know.
So he must have been amused by it in some way.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm not amused. And
I'm
it's
not
unfortunate. It's one of the periods in the history of his band that I really don't like, because I think they ruined it. I think they just ruined it. So that's just me. I know there's a lot of people who love this stuff, and I get it, but not me.
Pete, you and Chuck could be happy together. You just like see what I did there?
Da, 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 da. Oh man! All right, now that that's out of the way, back to Stephen.
Don't think I can follow that really. My next one is Passengers by Mostly Autumn. I mean, I like to support UK bands. I try my best to highlight the best of UK prog. There's lots and lots and lots of it. I don't understand the appeal of Mostly Autumn at all. I find them to be just...
Yes.
It's just a hum. It's just like, constantly. It does that all the time. It never changes. To the extent you forget it's there until it becomes annoying. And you go, what is that? Well, it's Mostly Autumn. And I just really, really just have never connected with it. And I've chosen Passengers because, I mean, you don't need another Gilmour era Pink Floyd, do you? There was already one, and it was one too many for a lot of people. So not for me. I do like Pink Floyd, everybody, right? But this is just a pastiche. It's just a copy. It's really, really tedious. And I just have there's no excitement there whatsoever. There's no need for it at all. My other choice for this one is, and I'm going to not make friends with a lot of people that I know. It's English Electric Part 1 by Big Big Train. I mean, they're a great band. I feel bad for highlighting them because they've just been through some tragedy, and I get all that. But I tell you what, if I want to listen to folk music, I'll listen to folk music. If I want to listen to lots of brass, I'll listen to a brass band. If I want stuff that's kind of this country twee sort of folklore English thing that this Scotsman clearly cannot connect with, well, I don't want it. I think that's the problem. I just don't really understand it. I can't get under its skin. It just seems to bounce off me. The musicianship is great. The arrangements are fantastic. There's a lot of talent in the band. Everything should work. And I tried really hard. I bought at least 3 albums by this band. I don't own any of them now. And I've picked on English Electric Part 1 because it was heralded as this kind of great return of prog. And I really tried to love it, and it just doesn't love me back. And I resent it for it. It's as simple as that. I tried and tried and tried, and eventually I sold it last year for quite a lot of money in actual fact. So they've done me some sort of favour. But there you go. Yeah, I don't get it at all. When there's elements of music in there that I just think, why is it there? But people love it. So it's me that's wrong on this one. I just really don't like it. Really don't like it.
Well, I thought that was their best album.
Yeah, I like it a lot too.
I mean, I like
that's
it.
why I've got that, not for shock factor, but because that's one I tried really hard with. Friends that I respect the opinion of have said, no, it'll click.
Feigenbaum and I had this conversation about that band. I find it very interesting because when they started out, they were on Cyclops, and they really were kind of shitty. They weren't a particularly good band. And then all of a sudden, it was like somebody just like flipped the switch, and it just came together. And it was like, this is really, really good. And it's like, what the hell happened? And of course, they had this new singer, and I don't know. I don't know if there was a lineup change. But I thought English Electric, I thought that was really not, I guess we call it pastoral. Is that
I think over here we call it tedious.
I don't know. Well, maybe Stephen, maybe they're overreaching a bit. I don't know if we needed a part 1 and a part 2 and all. But for me, in terms of like storytelling and all, I thought it was a really good album. And I think everything they've done since then, it's just been sort of repetitious. I think that was I don't know. For me, I thought that was a good album. But
that is the general
one of those
consensus.
bands that I'm surprised that Stephen doesn't like. I really am.
Yeah, I would have figured Stephen, man, I would have figured that right in your wheelhouse.
And that's probably why I have such disdain for it, is because I have tried so hard, because so many people have said to me, no, you should like this, Stephen. And I don't mind it when people say that. Often they're right. But I just can't go over it. It doesn't connect with me at all. I really don't like it.
That was a great singer,
Yeah. There's so much talent in the band.
It was amazing that he was the finalist along with Ray Wilson to replace Phil Collins in Genesis.
Mm.
And they picked Ray Wilson.
Shame.
Bad choice.
Bad choice. And
very bad choice.
I don't know. Like I said, I think they're a fine band. But yeah, gets a little, I've kind of heard it, but I thought English Electric, I thought was really, really good.
I have to confess, I only have one record by them. It's called English Electric Full Power.
That's like the whole,
which I guess is
like
everything in one.
Yeah, it's all in one.
And I'm just gonna go with my Scottish friend. I have never been able to listen to the whole thing once through. I'll play parts of it, and I'll say to myself, this is what I like, right? And then quickly I find out that no, I don't actually like it.
Yeah.
And I hate it because people who I really like are now in the band, like Nick Virgilio and Rickard. I mean, Rickard's actually a pal, right? I like that dude, and I think he's very talented, right? But I just can't. That's a great choice.
That's exactly how I feel. I just can't. I can't put my finger on why not. I just don't connect.
People used to yell at me for not loving them. That also happened. That also, they would give me things. Listen to this, the Underfall Yard, or whatever the fuck it was called, and this and the other. It was a similar experience. I thought it like I was doing homework.
I think people are about to start yelling at me for not liking them.
I have to admit, I've never heard them. I've heard them talked about for years. Never bothered to pick it up.
Yeah.
I know people who've traveled to England to hear them play from Chicago.
Yeah.
You know, just, but
Oh well, like I said, you can't like everything. So,
nope.
Lewis, back to you.
All right. So I was a little conflicted about this because I'm not even, I don't want to enter into the whole bullshit of, is this Prog? Right? But everybody that I know who likes this band always refers to this as their Prog album. And it is absolutely a record that I was tortured with and I absolutely despise. And I speak, of course, of Kiss Music for the Elder. Fuck that noise. All right? Like honestly, what the fuck? What is wrong with people? I don't understand how anybody could like that. And worst of all, it's like somehow legendary. In the shit cosmos of Kiss, that is one of the shittiest things they've done.
It's
a great album.
I love it.
See, there you go. I absolutely despise that record, and I think I despise it precisely because everybody is so giddy about it.
Eric's blood pressure is rising right now.
Yeah,
I was out. I was out by then, Ken.
No, I'm still thoroughly in.
Hey man, you know Kiss. Once you're out, you're never really out.
Yeah, this is what I have
got
found.
He's got his hand in your wallet.
So
So you hit the grave, and then he sells you the Kiss coffin.
I'm choosing Kiss Music for the Elder for that reason, because no, it just I could speak for 2 hours of how much I hate it. I won't do it. and the other record I decided that because it was Anthony's birthday recently.
Yes,
I wanted to make a video of myself sitting in my studio playing Elias and wishing him a happy birthday. But what happened was that I mean, it was going to be hard going, but I was going to muscle through it because, like I said, I like Anthony a lot. However, I must have clicked in the wrong YouTube tab, and instead I played a different John Anderson album, separated in time by 20 years, and it is just as much shite. I speak of a thing called Angel's Embrace. I don't know if you guys have heard this fucking record. It's from 1995. But holy shit, what a gigantic waste of time that is. I don't understand how this guy keeps getting funded. I don't know how he keeps making these records. In my opinion, he's like the AC/DC of pseudo softy prog. He just makes the same record over and over and over. But somehow it's like he keeps pouring water in the soup. So there's less. But the only thing that never dilutes is just this bullshit hippie nonsense that pervades everything he touches. I hate that fucking record as much as I hate Elias. I had to throw it in there because, 2 for 2, he's got a perfect score. Everything he's ever done solo that I've heard is shit. So there it is. Angel's Embrace by John Anderson. I have no use for that. And I didn't even record Anthony's video because I was so pissed off that I heard that. And I remember I was waiting for the weird language, and it was just sounding different from what I remembered. And I realized it was the wrong thing, and it was terrible. So there we go.
All righty. George.
All right, George.
My next one is Mike Oldfield, Omadon.
Thank you.
It's pastoral, it's ethereal, it's celestial, it's Celtic. It's basically a sonic nap. I mean, is this the first New Age album? I believe it is. You can't tell me that it's not New Age.
Yes.
I guess it's written to give you all the feels, but that's not what I'm looking for. And I don't want my prog rock to be like a 36-minute snooze-a-thon, which is basically what it is. And like Mr. Nasser says, for it to be prog rock, it has to actually fucking rock somewhere, and this
Yes.
does not rock at any point. It's like
Frog sleep.
go to sleep stuff. So it's not for me. That's my first one. My second one is prog metal thing. Atheist, Unquestionable Presence. This is supposed to be a landmark in prog tech metal of the early 90s. It's complete garbage. I'm revoking the landmark status, basically, because I don't get it. The bass player is good, and that is it. The vocals would have Eric running for the hills. They're so bad. The production's terrible. To call this tech metal, I don't know where they're getting it. Have they heard Watchtower even, much less Spiral Architect? I mean, It's not tech. Yeah, all I can say in defense of it is the bass player is good. I know it was slim pickings in 91 for prog metal and especially tech metal, but that's no reason to accept this garbage. So, Atheist.
Yes. What a great choice. I forgot
Sorry,
about
George, that album rules. I don't care what you say. But again, it's a death metal album that's quite technical. I mean, I get people not liking it. It's but anyway. All righty. Chad.
All right. Round two. So my next one is well, again, going back to something Steven said about if I want to listen to X type of music, I'll listen to a band that does that kind of music. And that's why I have no use for the latest Steven Wilson album. The Future Bites, everything I heard from it was just dancey and full of falsetto and just a mess. It's not what I want to hear from him. I know he's stretching his wings and trying different styles and all that, but stay out of that realm. Get off the dance floor, Steven. You don't belong there. I know I feel like he got really excited when he had that goofy video for Permeating from the album before it, which is actually sort of a fun ABBA-ish type thing. I actually kind of like that song. But he went way too far with The Future Bites. And when he released that, special edition of one for however many hundreds or thousands of dollars, it's ridiculous. And I don't know. I hope he comes back with this next project that he's been teasing, and it's something that you can really sink your teeth into. He doesn't have to make the Raven again. He doesn't have to repeat himself, but get off the fucking dance floor. Just stay out of there. Terrible. just not where he belongs. So that's one. And number two, you guys are not going to like this. I don't care. But Roxy Music, first album, tried it, hated it, can't stand it. I've tried to listen to them over the years. I got that Supernatural Fairy Tales box set years and years and years ago. And Virginia Plain and maybe it was Love is the Drug and Ladytron were both on there. And of the 5 CDs worth of music, those are the 2 I hated the most. And I've heard people talk about them over the years. So I tried them. And I started at the beginning, and I just couldn't listen to it. I cannot stand Brian Ferry. He's what was I forget what Luis you said before about somebody's the vocal thing you said earlier, but
I forget. It's off the cuff. I don't remember. It's probably something vulgar.
I should have written it down when you said it, because
yes.
I'm just going to apply to somebody later.
If an enema had a voice, it would sound
Thank
like
you.
that.
That is it. That is it. Brian Ferry is the enema for me. Yes. He is to me what Peter
that's the best tagline. Sorry, Chad. That's the best tagline ever, isn't it? Brian Ferry is the enema for me.
That's right. It's on the back of the package.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I got through that album, and I never wanted to invest any more time. I didn't need to hear anything else. And I've heard, I guess, Love is the Drug. Is that on that one, or is that later on?
Ladytron.
Right? Yeah. So I've heard that like radio here and there, and don't even get started with Avalon. That was just 80s horse shit. But yeah, their eclecticism and weirdness is completely lost on me, and I will never listen to another Roxy Music song. So that's the end of it.
Who's Chuck?
There you go.
Ah,
Well played, sir.
on the spot prop. Yes, indeed.
You can have that shirt.
I love it.
Oh, and isn't it fitting that Chuck should go next? There you go.
Oh man. Well, the thing is funny is because I actually was gonna pick a Roxy Music album myself, as much as
Really?
I love them. Yes.
Yeah, I gotta say, Full Manzanera almost saved some of it for me, but then Brian Ferry starts to sing again. I'm like, ah, fuck, that's what I hate. Get out. I'm done.
Oh man. Well, like I said, I was gonna pick a Roxy Music album, but I'll probably leave that for some other time. My number 3 is an album that that just found this band going much more into the decline. It Styx. Kilroy Was Here. Just a dreadful album. I'm surprised that these guys didn't they were in fistfights while these guys were touring this album. What a complete waste of what, man. Just a horrible album. So that's my first one. Then the second one is I don't understand why Steve Hackett ever felt that he needed to release this album. It's Feedback 86. What's that? It's bad enough that after Defector, things start to decline, Cured, Highly Strung, and Until We Have Faces. Although I love these albums, I personally love them. But Feedback 1986 is just dreadful. He should have just left it in the bins. I don't even like the song that he did with Brian May. I thought that song was just as bad as well. Cassandra, very, very terrible. So those are my 2 picks. Styx's Kilroy Was Here, terrible album, terrible concept album, and Feedback 1986 should have just stayed in the bins. Steve Hackett.
All right.
I actually like Kilroy, believe it or not.
I like a couple tracks, but yeah, it's pretty weak.
You know what I like about it? Why I gave it a chance and a chance and a chance? Because that Domo Arigato song, I know. I can't defend it, but I'm just going to tell you what I like about it. What I like about it is the fact that the backing music never ever repeats. The vocals are repetitive, but the backing track is always changing. And I thought that was very clever for obviously a poppy Japanese robotic bullshit song. I thought that was very nice.
Dennis DeYoung is the John Anderson of the United States.
No, I don't know. Maybe I don't think so. But
no, I love him. I just kidding. I love the guy.
That was a low moment for that band for sure. That was truly when they just split ways, right? Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I like that album for that reason. I think if you get past the shock value and the horror of the lameness of the thing, it actually has really good musical ideas. Yeah. And they played them very well. It's just that
as that song is, it's catchy as all hell, right?
Yep. Yeah, but so is Chlamydia. So that's not necessarily a high point. Catchy, I don't know, but I will say this: I do love the fact that Styx had that much quality in them, right? That they would still, find a way to make something that wasn't straight up junk, right?
Yep. Yeah.
It wasn't Embrace of the Angels or whatever that thing was. What's it called? Yeah, Angels Embrace. Yeah,
Louis, you have too much time on your hands.
I do.
And Chuck's got heavy metal poisoning.
Oh man.
All right, Eric.
Okay, so my next 2, this one came again from reading about bands, hearing maybe people saying stuff. And I actually when I first read about this band, Bill Bruford played drums on their second album. Okay, good deal. Pavlov's Dog. Holy shit. I can't listen to that guy. I mean, he's about 3 octaves above Geddy Lee. And he warbles and cackles, and I'll keep it short, but here's my example. Theme from Subway Blue. If you can listen to that, then I guess you like him. But that's the one I would recommend. Go out and listen to this guy sing. Awful. And I'm going to follow Chuck. And I think Steve was in a bad period, like you said, after Defector, Cured, kind of on the decline. This record is all over the place. And again, I love Steve Hackett. He can't sing. Don't sing on your records.
What's my name?
It's all over this. He sings all over this. Highly processed. He can't sing. He's a great guitar player, and I don't want to hear him playing harmonica. Play the guitar.
Agree with that.
Play the guitar. So that's my 2, Pavlov's Dog and Till We Have Faces, Steve Hackett. And I think it was Pampered Menial was the record for Pavlov's Dog.
Have you ever heard Steve Howe sing?
Yes.
That's even worse.
That's worse.
But
I was going to say, you will develop some
an entire
appreciation.
record. This, he sings on everything. It's awful. Yes, but I have. Steve Howe is awful too. Absolutely.
Yes. I remember seeing Steve Hackett. I think it was at the Bottom Line, and he used to have all the backing vocals on a DAT, and the DAT machine. The DAT machine broke. Oh, that wasn't good.
Oh, that's bad.
So on a positive note, where would we say Hackett got his shit together again? Which album would we say where he went on the ascension?
I think it's more of the live stuff, Ken, when he started doing the Genesis Revisited shows. I don't like Roger King's production. It's a lot, even Darktown, which I think that kind of came back up, but
yeah, I like that album.
Produced. Mm-hmm. I don't know. After Defector, I have a tough time even with it. And I think almost all of his stuff. I like his acoustic stuff. I just don't like what Roger King does. It's so overproduced. Live,
I really like To Watch the Storms. I like that album.
I like those albums. Like To Watch the Storm, Darktown. I thought those were all very good.
Darktown is 99, right? That's a great record.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was like, to me, when he was kind of getting his shit together and coming back.
He was coming back. They're better than
2000s have been good to him, I think, in my opinion.
Yes. To Watch the Storm is a great record, I think.
Yeah. In my opinion, it's his best since then. He's done some pretty fine albums, which he seems to have, found his niche again. I liked Guitar Noir. I thought that was a pretty good album. But once again, Darktown was a very dark album, because of all the subject matters on it. It takes a while to get used to that album. It's pretty good, but in comparison to Guitar Noir and to Watch is, those are 2 excellent albums by him.
Out of the Tunnel's Mouth was pretty good too, I thought.
Excellent. Mm-hmm. Kind of over processed too.
He hit that down period, starting with Cured, when he got rid of Pete Hicks, right? And then he was singing, he's making some not so great albums, using a lot of, if I remember, some Drum Machine and stuff. It just, but then all of a sudden he kind of like, he got serious again. I don't know. But like we were saying, Darktown, all that stuff. Out of the Tunnel, that stuff was pretty good.
I don't think he's made a great record. I think he's made some good records, but I don't think anything touches Defector back.
Well, I think that's because he sings. I think Eric. I think if he brought in a better singer, I think that he has it in him to make a great record again.
Or don't.
Was there,
I thought his last studio album was really good.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I thought it was heavy and he always comes up with some great instrumentals.
Yeah, he does.
Is that the record, Ken, that has the song "The Devil's Cathedral"? Something like that. It's called.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
that tune live kills.
Oh, amazing.
What I don't like is, sadly, is that he spends so much time on Genesis stuff than he does on his own stuff. I think his catalog is pretty strong. Where he doesn't have to repeat himself by doing stuff with Genesis.
The problem is, Chuck, if he would go out and just play his solo stuff, he'd have half the audience.
Yep.
That's just the truth. I mean, when he plays here in this area, like the Philly area, he plays down the street from me. He plays 2 nights at a theater that's holding 1,000 people. And he sells out.
Yeah.
If he was doing just solo stuff, he'd be playing one night at the TLA in Philly, playing to like 400 people.
Yeah,
it's just the way it is.
Correct.
All right, Ken, your next 2 picks.
All right. So the next one, this is a pretty bad album. Renaissance Timeline. You know, on the surface, it had potential. You had Annie Haslam, Michael Dunford, John Camp, the core, and then they bring in some of Steve Hackett's guys. Nick Magnus is playing keyboards. They bring in Eddie Harden from Harden in York, but it was just like this attempt to shift styles and remain relevant. It's a pop album. Got all these great musicians playing this really simplistic music. It just wasn't good enough for the pop market, and it alienated their core audience. You know, Renaissance started to go off the rails with Azure d'Or.
Not a good album.
Yeah, I mean, but at least you could say that it's a Renaissance album. Songs a little shorter. You know, you had the Flood of Leons, which was what I thought was like, you know, a great tune, and it was an attempt for them to make a more commercial sound and you know, just stay, you know, be prog but stay relevant, get some radio airplay. And they did Camera, and that was really like when the Death Spiral started. You know, by the time of Timeline, it was over, and then the band fell apart. You know, listening to it again, I was really kind of embarrassed for him. I hated it. It was really bad. So, my next one is actually two. I'm going to give you two in one. One of my favorite bands from Germany, Triumvirate. They made back-to-back two awful albums, which they have to be considered together. The first one is called A la carte, and that was followed by a real shit eater called Russian Roulette. And to me, it was like How the Mighty Have Fallen. You know, the only guy that was left in the original lineup was Jürgen Fritz. On A la carte, Barry Palmer sings on some of the album. I never particularly cared for him too much, but the thing with Barry Palmer was at least he was singing on some really good albums. Old Loves Die Hard and Pompeii were two really good albums, so you know he was passable. But on this album, the material sucked. So all the musicians were hired guns. It's pure AOR pop. To me, it sounds like bad Supertramp, like really bad Supertramp. Supertramp by themselves are pretty bad. So, you know, yeah, I mean, you know, that's pretty low. So, you know, Jürgen Fritz, this motherfucker of a keyboard player, absolute monster. He's totally emasculated. There's no killer keyboard runs. There's some organ here and there, but Spartacus, this isn't. And just when you think it can't get worse for Jürgen Fritz, he makes Russian Roulette. That one featured all U.S. session guys. He's got guys like Steve Lukather and Jeff Porcaro on there. It only got released in Germany. I mean, the only good thing about that album was the cover. Had a great cover of two guys blindfolded eating sandwiches, one of which had razor blades hanging out of it. That was kind of a cool cover. That was the only good thing. I mean, this record was so bad that it made A la carte sound like brain salad surgery. It was just really, really bad. I mean, this was a band they had just a great run of albums, and then they just fell apart, and he just sold out, and he just made these horrible, horrible records. So, yeah, they got purged from the collection many, many years ago.
Russian Roulette was one of my extra picks for today, and it is wretched. I mean, literally, you would be hard pressed to think that was the same band that did Double Dimples.
Yeah, and A la carte was bad. I remember there was a song Waterfall that was on there. Oh, it was like with these chick backing vocals. It was
a horrible album.
Really bad.
New wave. I mean, it's not. It wouldn't even be like the worst Blondie or Devo album would be way better than this. I mean, Russian Roulette is terrible.
What I read, somebody said that like he was trying to placate the record label like Capitol Records and trying to do something, you know, relevant, whatever that means, and it's garbage.
That wasn't even relevant for his time.
No, and you know you got to stick to what you know. You know.
Well, you know, you lose two key members. You know, one sadly, and the other one that just left. You know.
Yeah, I didn't. Helmut Kohlin died. I didn't understand Barry Palmer. I never really researched. I don't know where he came from. I don't know. I know he sang for Mike Oldfield later on, but I never really saw much of the appeal for him as a vocalist. Those albums, I thought Old Love's Die Hard was a really, really strong album. And Pompeii was he got the Passport rhythm section on there. So it was a very good album. Not as good as, Spartacus or anything, but it was a good prog rock album. And then all of a sudden it's like, man, the train went off the rails.
Yep, for sure. All right, my next two, I'm going to start with this album from 1978. It's the 8th album from this band, although they had to use a different name for it. Hawk Lords, 25 Years On. So this is basically Hawkwind, but because the band kind of splintered a bit at the time, they were all fighting for the right to the name Hawkwind. So Dave Brock and Robert Calvert and whoever was left decided to just put this album out, call themselves Hawk Lords, right? But
only one passable song.
What's
one
that?
Passable song. Just one passable song. Passable.
Yeah. This is bad.
Like a kidney stone?
It's
terrible
that painful.
A musical kidney stone.
Awful cover too, just absolutely terrible. Yeah, I mean, this is basically not a space rock album at all. It's like new wave and synth pop. And you know what I realized when I heard this album is that I'm not a big Robert Calvert fan, and I find that the Hawkwind albums that he's on, where he has more of a presence, I really don't like. He writes most of the songs, he sings lead vocals on everything. I mean, Cy Power doesn't sound anything like Hawkwind.
Nope.
Dave Brock's guitars are largely MIA throughout the whole thing. Automation is laughably bad. The only ones is boring. It sounds like a really boring, light new wave synth pop album, and it's a total
not a good one.
fest. And if you like your Hawkwind with all the cool, early synth sounds and lots of big heavy riffs and screaming saxophone and all that, you don't have any of that here. And just I found, I know a lot of people who are Hawkwind fans. They love Robert Calvert. He's thought of as like this legendary figure. I never liked him much at all. I don't like his voice. I don't like his songwriting, and he's all over this album, and that's why this album to me kind of sucks. So that's my first pick here for this round, and I'm going to go with the Mars Volta, the Bedlam in Goliath. Yeah, this is another one of those bands that I really tried hard to get into. Everybody for years was like, they are the greatest of the new wave of prog bands. And I'm like, all right. So I went out and bought all their albums, and I'm like, I really, really don't like these albums. First of all, Cedric's whiny, high-pitched vocals, great on my nerves endlessly. And kind of like what George says, their music seems to constantly be trying to be very, very clever and too clever for its own good. And it just, to me, it just doesn't all make sense. And I like complicated prog, right? I like aggressive prog. But I get with this band, it's like, is it supposed to be prog? Is it supposed to be alternative rock? Is it funk? Is it math rock? To me, it just sounds like they wanted to be the Red Hot Chili Peppers, but say that they're a prog band. And it just doesn't work for me. I'm not buying it. I don't know. Every time I listen to these guys and I hear people talk about, but I like prog. I like the Mars Volta. I'm thinking, is this the band for people who secretly don't really like prog, but want the prog people to think they're cool because they like the Mars Volta and it's labeled as prog? I don't know, but all I know is, to me, it doesn't really compute. I've tried. There's some musical things that happen that are okay, I think, but I can't take his vocals for one, and that's just kind of like a wall that goes right up with these guys. So Mars Volta, Bedlam and Goliath.
Wait till you hear of Dillinger's Escape Plan.
I was gonna say.
I don't mind Dillinger's Escape Plan. That's the crazy thing. I don't mind them at all. So
well, you're saying you don't like the Mexican James Brown.
I don't know. It just
The
doesn't
Mars
make sense to me, Louis. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't know. I've tried. I've tried, and it's most people are like, you don't like the Mars Volta? I'm like, no, it just don't work for me. So, all right, the final nails in the coffin. Back to Stephen. The final pick for today.
Okay, well, I'm going to save some people some, finger mashing on their keyboards. Okay, because I'm the guy that I like music from the Elder. Okay, I'm wearing a Dawkins shirt. Okay, I'm down with that. I like The Future Bites. I think it's a great album. Okay, I clearly have a problem with Pink Floyd, and I've already disowned Big Big Train. Okay, I don't like the debut album by Liquid Tension Experiment. Okay, so I'd just like to say that this is an excellent opportunity for my last appearance on this show.
Eric is already picking your replacement.
Clearly, I'm a simple guy, as we know. Okay, I like solos that drop the jaw. I like the occasional hook. I like structure in my songs. I like melody, but I like them in the other order. I like melody first, and then we work through to the solos that drop the jaw. I just have never connected with this album at all. I bought the next one, didn't really connect with that either. I just don't get it. It's indulgent, and I know I'm on a prog show. That's meant to be half of what it's about. I need a little more than that to hang my hat on, and it's just not here, and it's never been here. I owned it, I sold it, I listened to it again this week, and I still kind of go, yeah, it's quite boring, really. So anyway, it's been fun on the show. Thanks.
Get out.
It's like get back in good graces with Mike Portnoy. I love that album. I absolutely love that person.
Nice try, Chad.
Paradigm Shift is just a mind melter. I love that song.
Lewis.
Well, you know, if you think you're gonna get kicked out for not liking LTE 1, the one I left for last is a record that I have always hated. And I think the reason why I hate it more than anything is because everybody gushes about it, which just makes me hate it even more. Because I think it is everything that I hate about prog myself, and none of the things that I like about it are in this record. I mean, of course, the gigantic, sprawling turd known as Tales from Topographic Oceans by Yes. What a waste of time. The fucking Hindu Bible set to music. You can fuck right off, John Anderson. Again. And take Steve Howe with you, because you two assholes did that together. All right? So I'm just putting it out there.
Oh man.
I despise that record. I have never understood why people love it. Nous sommes du soleil. Get the fuck out of here. No, thank you. Okay. So seriously, where is the rock in that double fucking album? Give me 15 seconds of rocking. It's not there. There's a lot of crooning. There's a lot of praying. There's a lot of incense burning. There's a lot of Rick Wakeman deciding that his life decisions are shitty. And this is the guy that recorded Rock and Roll Prophet. And he thought, this goes beyond for me. Okay. So honestly, it's not fair that was Alan White's first outing with the band, because they just really handed him a shit sandwich. But it's awful. I hate it. And everybody reveres that album because it's long and pretentious. And I guess we've been using this word a lot, pastoral. This is not even pastoral.
It's not even pastoral.
This is just shitty. And I just killed I just killed someone.
Lost George.
I just killed George. But I hate this record. I can't for a second. I don't own it, of course. For years I've had these discussions with the Yes heads. And yeah, it's not for me. So sorry.
Yeah, it's all right. George.
Well, like Eric said, I'm always looking at lists and reading stuff and trying to find some album that everybody likes that I haven't heard of. And this is one of those from Rate Your Music, a fusion album that was like a recent one, like 5 years ago, that was super highly rated. It's called, the band is The Comet Is Coming, Trust in the Life Force of the Deep Mystery. That pretentious enough for you? This is horrible. You know how some albums have that like 45 seconds or a minute of like ambient noise, kind of an intro? This one's 5 fucking minutes long. I mean, nothing happens for 5 minutes, just little creaky noises and stuff. Then it kicks in, starts a bunch of a deluge of limp electronic tones over completely mind-numbingly boring compositions. Really, it's purportedly fusion, but that's got to be some kind of sick joke because this is fusion like Night Ranger is power metal. I mean, it's not even in the neighborhood. And to top it all off, it's like really long and almost 80 minutes, and so somehow it's on the Impulse label, which is
George, why would you think of that as a fusion album?
Because that's how it was billed on there. That's how it's rated, and it's on the fusion.
Well, not fusion in the way that you think of fusion. I mean, he's a great Shabaka Hutchinson is a great player, great sax player, and if you ever heard him play with Shabaka and the Ancestors.
I might have to hear him on another record because here he's just noisy.
Well, that's some serious spiritual jazz, really great Afrocentric jazz. Commoners Coming is more of a contemporary fusion of styles, not fusion the way we commonly talk about fusion. I mean, it's just like people throw around the term prog rock, now, not the way we talk about prog rock. It means something a little different. So anyway,
you'd have to bastardize it to call this fusion because this is not fusion by it.
No, not at all, not at all. But listen to him play with Shabaka and the Ancestors. Really intense spiritual jazz, beautiful stuff. Very
similar to Pharoah Sanders,
Afrocentric.
Like Pharoah Sanders, like
yes. If you like Pharoah Sanders. That would be something. I may not be your thing.
Don't let him change your mind, George. You just keep
George. George, I will allow you to continue to spit venom and hate this album. You have
one from last year is no better. It's kind of like the Mars Volta too. They don't have regular fans. All their fans think they're brilliant, and they just fell from the sky like gods. It's a terrible album. I re-listened to it for this, and it was the most painful 70 minutes of my life. It was terrible.
I would like to point out that I like the Mars Volta, but they are no fucking gods.
No,
I just like them. They're fun. They're fun. And I like the Mexican James Brown, and I like Juan Alderete playing bass, and Thomas Pridgeon on drums is a fucking beast.
Yep.
And it worked for me, but also my first exposure to them was live. And it really kind of took my head off. And then I started to listen to the records. So you like what you like, right? But for me, it worked, But I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, these guys are geniuses. No. But they're fun. They're good at what they do. And if you ask them to tell you what they do, you'll probably want to punch them in the face because something really stupid is going to fall out of their mouth. But if you just listen to the records, I think they got some good shit, man. For me,
I encourage everyone on the panel to go check this record out. See what you think.
I'm going to do that tonight.
The Comet is coming. Which one?
Trust in the life force of the deep mystery.
That's enough. I heard enough.
Yeah.
Jesus. It'll take me too long just to type that.
I know, right?
You sleep by the time you're done.
Yep. All right, Chad, your final blow.
All right. I'm going to do a little bit, not quite a reprise, but I'm going to piggyback a little bit on something Steven said earlier. And I'm going right back to our friend Billy Sherwood, but I'm going to pick World Trade. I had that second World Trade album called Euphoria. That should have been called Euthanize. Just kill me. It was fucking terrible. Awful. I mean, it's full of 80s, motifs and all kinds of post-production bullshit and effects. He was trying to sing like John Anderson at times. He's not a great singer. He's okay. All the bass sounds sound like electronic and fake. You can hear that some of those songs, that style, that boring ass style, the way he writes, he tried to bring that to Yes, and obviously Open Your Eyes is not good. But you would think that the guys in Yes could at least take maybe an idea that he had and say, oh, maybe we can improve upon that. Well, I guess not. I guess it's so bad it can't be improved upon. It's that fucking bad. And I had to write down some of the songs that were just unbelievably horrible. It starts off with probably the slowest song on the album, which is a terrible, terrible mistake. This thing called One World Going Round. Just stupid. Yeah, bullshit. And then there's an awful song called Golden Age on there, which was just, it's embarrassing is what it is. And there was another really bad one called Wheels of Life that I didn't even write down a description because I hated it too much. It didn't deserve any more typing. But, you know, the fact, like Steve was saying before, the fact that this guy is still around and being able to put out records, no matter what the record label is mind-boggling. He attached his wagon to the Yes train, and he's bouncing along behind the train, still getting paid. Now he's got Chris Squire's position in the band. You know, somebody's looking down on him from afar and allowing him to still make music when he's just got to stop. He just got to stop. Don't produce. Don't write. Maybe play in a cover band, but stop writing music. Just stop. The World Trade. What's funny, it was World Trade when I first started doing deep dives, and you know the new thing on the block was Magna Carta Records, and they're putting out all these bands, some good, some bad, right? And World Trade was one of them. So I picked up a World Trade album. I was like, what is this crap? It didn't even sound like progressive rock at all. It's sort of like, I don't know, Asia meets a dog turd. I don't know. It was terrible. So that probably got listened to twice. I revisited it this week online, and it's just, I shook my head at every song, and it's just absolute garbage. Avoid World Trade at all costs, especially Euphoria. Terrible.
Yeah.
Just terrible.
I hear you. Chuck.
This was a band that I initially loved. Had this one album, which I thought was an amazing album. And then from that point onward, they just kept doing 40-minute songs. Next album will be 50 minutes. And the next album will be 60 minutes. And then it wound up with this one turkey of an album. And from that point onward, I've never listened to them ever since. The name of the group is the Flower Kings. Can't stand them. I really hate that group. And this particular album, from this album onward, I've never listened to them since. And that's the Rainmaker.
Yes.
It's a terrible, awful album from a band that I used to love that I can't stand anymore. You know, if I sound like Popeye, you know, I can't stand no more. It's just an awful album. You know, it's an awful album by a group that's just, you know, they make Yes look like a bunch of hillbillies, man. You talk about pretentious, man. You know, songs that go on forever, man, just meander onward. They think it's good.
A lot of people think it's good.
Yeah, they got quite a following.
Can I tell a quick Rainmaker story? When that record came out, I was at Prog Day. Mm-hmm. I bought it from Chris Lamke, day one. On the ride from the Storybook Farm to the hotel, I played it.
It probably was 5 minutes in?
The next day, I came back. I just handed it to Chris Lamke. And he said, that's pretty harsh, but fair. Grabbed it. And I traded for something else. So there it is. I agree with that. They lost their way. I haven't really been able to. I haven't really wanted to listen to anything else by them after that. So in that way, we're perfectly in sync.
Yep.
It's difficult for me to hear it. But the Stardust We Are, some of those other things, they have some nice moments, right?
Oh, Stardust is an amazing album, you know.
Space Revolver had some cool shit.
Yes, it did.
But then what happened?
But then Rainmaker came by, and then I could no longer listen to that group anymore.
It just double albums.
Oh, that's a brutal album. You know, I wouldn't even. I couldn't play that album.
Maybe they're getting paid by the minute. What do you mean?
Were you kidding? Sure, you'd be a millionaire after this album.
Yep.
All right,
that's Eric. My number one.
So this is the only one tonight that I'm not going to rag on vocals because I really like both of these. This is a collaboration. I like both of these artists. I like their singing. I love what they do. And Steven made a point on his last one talking about how much he tried to like something. And I felt the same way about this after my first listen. And when you listen to something, I shouldn't have to try to like something. This is an and Chuck, I'm going to use yours. This is a snooze fest. It's absolutely boring. Steven Wilson and Mike Arkenfeld, Storm Corrosion. These guys should work. This should work. And if they came and said, we want to do another record, I'd tell them, go, do it. But this, don't do this again. It's a snooze fest. I love both of them. Great stuff. And that's all I can say. 6 sleepy songs on this.
Boring.
Boring.
By the way, to help celebrate our 100th episode of In the Proxy, welcome to Hudson Valley Squares.
What's up, folks?
We're in the ringers.
Crashing the party.
We are just finishing up our sequel to an episode we did a couple of years ago, which is the 5 prog albums we can't stand.
Oh, that was a big hit. That was a big.
You guys are catching the end of it. So Ken, what did you finish yours? Your last pick, your last bomb of the day?
So this is the only one I have a visual aid. 3 to the power of 3. So you guys know who John Kolodner is?
Yep.
So if people don't know, John Kolodner is he's revered in the music industry, considered to be like one of the great A&R guys. But for my take, he was the guy that sort of brought about the dumbing down of music. And he was the guy that had Aerosmith bring in songwriters, guys like, women like Diane Warren and
Desmond Child, right?
Desmond Child, all these, yeah. And this is the guy, he helped put together Asia. And, I was reading about him today. He actually turned down Peter Gabriel 3. He told Peter that that the album was a piece of shit. So he gets accolades from the industry, but I think that he sent the industry in the wrong direction. 3 was the result of Emerson, Lake and Powell falling apart, and Carl reunited with Keith, and then it was Kolodner that paired them up with a guy named Robert Berry. I don't know from Robert Berry, I don't know what his pedigree was, but other than that, he seemed to be the guy who tried to replace Steve Hackett in GTR, and that was another failed experiment. So that seems to be this guy's specialty, just playing in these one-off bands that turned to shit. So Berry wrote half the album. Emerson's keyboards are very one-dimensional sounding. It's almost hard to tell that it's him. There's some nice organ flourishes here and there, but he's pretty much been neutered. Carl carries on that robotic drumming that he started with Asia. Berry is a serviceable singer and a bassist, but the songwriting is just simple AOR stuff. There's one decent tune called Desde la Vida that Emerson had a strong hand in writing, but that's like the outlier track on the album. It's not even all that great. It's like an Emerson piano. There's this Emerson piano piece that's sandwiched between some AOR garbage. There's a really shitty cover version of 8 Miles High, and they don't bring anything new to it, and it's like, why bother? And in fact, the whole album sucks. It's like, I don't know why they bothered. They were better live. I got to see them live, but they were only better because I got to see them playing ELP music in a small club out on Long Island. It was a huge step back in their careers. As I'm watching these guys play in a country western bar to 300 people. It was
wow.
It was bad. That was when I told you that black rap comedy duo opening up, and the guys walked out on stage with a boombox on their shoulder, and people started pelting them. And they got booed off the stage before they could even crack a joke. So yeah, this was my number 5, 3 to the power 3. Pretty weak album.
All right, and my last turd of the day, from 1992, 14.
You don't know that it's your last turd of the day.
It's it's my last turd of the day. Trust me. Tomorrow's another day, Ken. Destination by Eloy from Germany. By the numbers, 90s hard rock, basically just Frank Borneman on guitar and vocals and Michael Gerlach on keyboards. Lots of session players. Frank's not the greatest singer anyway, but he's like so one note on this entire album. and you don't even know like where one song ends and one begins. I mean, it's just boring arrangements, a little bit of guitar. It's not heavy. It's not prog. A couple decent songs, but it's completely forgettable. It's probably closer to metal, but it's not even really good metal. And I don't even know if I want to hear Eloy playing metal. But Fire and Ice isn't a bad song, but the rest of it's just boring, unmemorable. If you're new to Eloy and you want to go investigate their catalog, get the 70s stuff, stay far away from this. So that's my last pick. And it's actually kind of cool that we got the Hudson Valley Squares here, because I wanted to introduce a show we're going to be doing in about a month. We're going to do a crossover show. We're going to have everybody here on the same show at the same time. We're going to be talking about metal bands who did a prog album and prog bands who kind of did sort of a heavy album, right? So everybody's going to bring to the show some albums to talk about where there's like a little bit of crossover. So not only are we doing the crossover between the two shows here, we're going to do some crossover prog and metal stuff. So that's coming up. Oh, there's Craig Kaminsky jumping in as well. So that's coming up, I believe, in about a month from now. So join us for a joint crossover in the Prog Seat in Hudson Valley Squares in about a month. And thanks everybody for joining our 100th episode of In the Prog Seat, for our sequel to Prog Albums We Can't Stand. Hopefully you got some albums today that you can surely stay away from, right? Or maybe there's some that we talked about you really like. In the comments below, tell us all about it, and visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, all together.
All the damn time.
For everybody from In the Prog Seat and the Hudson Valley Squares, thanks for watching. I am Pete Pardo. Have a good night, everybody. We'll see you soon here on In the Prog Seat. Take care.